So firstly, good morning, everyone. For those who've kind of not joined any webinars that we've done previously, my name's Charlie Griffiths. I'm kind of Director of Technology and Innovation over at AAG. On the webinar today, we've got Neil Richardson, who's the founder of Cyber Alchemy, who are a cyber security specialist organisation based in Sheffield. I'll let Neil kind of introduce himself anyway, but yeah, really pleased to have Neil on the call. Cyber Alchemy are one of our cybersecurity partners and do a kind of super fantastic job. So yeah, welcome Neil. Really pleased to have you on the call this morning.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you.
Okay, so this webinar is the first in a three-part series that we're going to be running. So today is really going to be an overarching view of AI and just a bit of an introduction. In the kind of second and third part, so on the 1st of August, we're going to be showing you kind of 5 key AI tools that you can use that will help you within your with your business, and hopefully will give you some real insight of how AI can automate and streamline some existing business processes. We are going to touch on a little bit around kind of ChatGPT today. We're just going to give you some really basic examples around there as a little bit of a teaser towards the end of the call this morning. And then on the 15th of August, we're going to have our kind of cybersecurity expert panel together, and basically about utilizing AI in cybersecurity. And there'll be an opportunity for a real good Q&A there. So we're not just going to have kind of Neil on the call, but we're also going to have kind of some marketing specialists on here as well about how AI can really assist not just in cybersecurity, but around kind of content generation, around marketing as well. So hopefully should be a really interesting series that we're running. And say, as always, if you've got any questions, just feel free to pop those in the chat box. There will be time for a kind of a Q&A at the end. It's not a hugely long webinar today, but say please any questions, just pop those in the chat box. So Neil, I don't know if you just want to just briefly introduce yourself, and then
yeah, thank you, Charlie. As Charlie mentioned, yeah, Neil Richardson, founder of Cyber Alchemy, worked in cybersecurity now for just over 13 years. Previously had a cybersecurity company, and now I've got a new one as things go. This one's more focused on things around sort of offensive security, technical security, and education and upskilling companies. Because what I found was, whilst the technical elements are really important, people, humans are our biggest asset, and in a lot of cases can be, in a cybersecurity context, our biggest weakness. So a lot of the work and services we're doing focuses on not just the technical, but also trying to bring people, whether that's just your day-to-day staff, your developers, anyone in the organization, up to a level so that they're in a much stronger position, and therefore keeping your company and your data and safer. But yeah, we've got to talk on the introduction to AI today. So I think this first one is mine. So I decided to come in ground zero, 101, and just sort of say, what is AI, right? Because AI has been around for a long time. However, it's got popular in the last year, predominantly due to ChatGPT and other breakthroughs. I think what's happened is, whether it's a mixture of processing power, intelligence, and actual capabilities that all come together at one time to create a really good opportunity, which has caused a massive influx of tools and techniques, which is now people are taking advantage of, businesses are taking advantages of. But there are also some pitfalls which we're going to touch on today, and on the in the talk, the third talk on the panel in the series. But when I talk to a lot of people, techies and non-techies, some people go, well, what is AI? Ultimately, what is it? So, to try and bring it down to sort of ground basis, it's different elements of things that we would do. So visual perception. So, AI, autonomous agents, cars, being able to visually perceive things, being able to do facial recognition, a car being able to tell the difference between a dustbin and a lorry. And that's actually, that was a harder challenge than Elon Musk ever realized when he started to develop Tesla, apparently. Learning, things being able to advance, get better. Speech recognition is a big one. We joked earlier about the subtitles, but that's a big thing. Historically, people had to manually do subtitles. in 20 languages. We've got to the point now where the AI, the technology is good enough to get really good subtitles on the fly. I mean, Microsoft Teams does it. A lot of these things, they've existed for a long time. The difference is AI is taking it to the next level, or it's made it much easier, much more faster, much more powerful. But with a lot of those things comes opportunities and risks. If you love a SWOT analysis, it covers all four of those areas. Decision making, again, I've got some more specific examples, but these AIs, they are able, if we put them in a certain position, they're able to make decisions for us or recommend decisions. Again, taking in lots of data and able to present options that you might be interested in. And natural language understanding, which comes in with, most people have heard of ChatGPT. That's the one that everyone thinks ChatGPT is AI, is all of AI. It's an AI, but it isn't the entirety of AI. So one of the sort of goals today is to sort of broaden that, so you understand different areas that AI exists, and then we can build on that of how that impacts your business. And for me personally, then the cybersecurity, the risk aspects of that brings in as well. So Charlie gets to be positive and talk about the opportunities. I get to be negative and talk about the risks and the challenges that we've got there. But ultimately, that bottom line, trying to replicate human-like cognitive processes. The goal is to make our lives easier, because it can do things that we maybe don't want to do. We can automate tasks, we can cognitive offload to these AIs and allow them to assist us and be, whether it's a virtual assistant or to take an entire job itself. But we're in a very early stage. There's a lot of bit of a wild west at the moment that we're looking at. So yeah, hopefully give you guys a baseline and then we can build on that. Next slide, please. So just on the back of that, what makes an AI different, right? This is something I felt very personally when it started to, the news started to go and everything started to happen. It's like, we've had AI for a long time. So what makes AI in this current sort of 2023 different? And I try to bring it down to four things, with an example of something quite interesting, and then an example that's probably going to affect you more in your day-to-day life. So a learning capability, that's what a lot of the AIs are building. Something quite advanced, medical image recognition. So we get CT scans, MRI scans. It can learn what a cancer looks like. It can learn what an aneurysm looks like and make a decision and learn and tell you about that in a medical setting. A more sort of something you might come across more yourself if you have Spotify music app. It can learn what you like and then present you with songs that it thinks you like, and it does a good job for me on that basis. And they're both a form of learning in AI. It's looking at information and then it's coming back with recommendations or results. Decision making. It can make decisions that potentially a human would also make. So high frequency trading on the stock market, it can see patterns, it can see trends, and it can make a decision based on those patterns and trends. Again, the key word there is, which is on the third one as well, is complexity. We could, you could write a tool that could make a decision A or B. There's a threshold that we get to with AI. The idea is these decision makings for high frequency trading and autonomous cars, they're multifaceted. It's taking in multiple streams of data. So that autonomous car that exists and is driving down the road needs to be as good as at least a human, being able to perceive the threats, understand what's going on. And I used to have a Tesla, and you know what? UK roads, Sheffield roads, it doesn't do well. It cannot handle the fact that we probably drive in the middle of the road for most of the time because of the cars on either side. So it's at a level, it can do a motorway pretty well, but beyond that, it can't do that. And that just shows that it's kind of this progression of decision making. That there's basic decisions, but then we're still ahead of them in lots of ways. But people will say it's time. Complexity. So you can pass it loads of information. So drug discovery, protein folding, that serious amount of data that an AI can ingest and then come out with a result. So that massive amount of complexity that they can work with, that's one of the differences that we're seeing now. And that also affects supply chain management. Amazon are all over this, making just-in-time decisions. Where do they send their stock? Where, historically, what areas of the country buy X at what time of year? That's all built into things like Amazon, which is why you can, with Amazon Prime, even now, which I think is crazy, order something at 9 a.m. and have it at your door by 2 p.m. The reality and the logistics behind that is insane. And as much as a human is smart, humans, I don't think, will be able to manage that themselves unless you have millions of them doing it. And then automation and efficiency. So if it's smart energy grids using the smart meters that you've got in your house to redistribute supply, or chatbots, chatbots. I actually I got a parking fine in Sheffield the other day. My what was it? My validation ticket fell off, and I had to go to Sheffield Council, and they had a chatbot, and I had to appeal to the chatbot first before they gave me the permission to appeal to a human. Annoying as that was, what they've done there is they've removed, they're removing maybe 90% of people that are going to try to appeal and don't have a valid reason. The chatbot let me through, and I was able to appeal to a human. I'm still waiting on the outcome. But that just takes away time and effort that somebody would have spent listening to maybe 90% of people whose cases wouldn't have been heard.
Was that a chatbot that actually worked well, Neil? Because
I was so worried. This chatbot came up, and I put my hands in my head. I went, "Oh no, this is going to be horrible." And I have to admit, I mean, because it let me through as a gatekeeper, I was happy. I was like, "Oh, this worked." I had to answer 4 or 5 questions, and it said, "You can proceed." So I don't know. There'll be lots of cases where people are frustrated with these things, but that's, if to take a positive light, automation and efficiencies taken some time and effort away from somebody in Sheffield Council, so they're only dealing with the cases that they believe. Of course there'll be outliers. Of course there'll be some people who fall through the cracks, and that is one of the challenges of relying on autonomous. So you do need to have those safety nets underneath to catch people that don't quite meet the AI's scope there. But yeah, that's kind of what makes AI different, or some of the elements that we're seeing now. Next one, please. And then, so what are the AIs, particularly with more examples? I'm just wanting to give you more specific examples of where you'll see them. So chatbots like natural language processing. So ChatGPT uses natural language processing to be able to talk to you, give you advice, create things, do things. Machine vision, that facial recognition, whether it's in a car, whether it's at Silverstone, which got some heat in the news because they were using facial recognition to detect people that they thought maybe, I think there were some terrorists or people who were going to cause problems. Very controversial there. Netflix recommendations, just like the Spotify ones, being able to say, "Oh, you liked this, so therefore you probably like this." I've seen some funny ones there, though. Sometimes it gets it wrong. Sales forecasts, looking at kind of historical data, being able to predict where your sales may go. Speech recognition, allowing you to use Siri, Alexa, or any of the home helpers that exists, and automated process with data entry. So if you have to enter a lot of data, again, some of these AIs are really good at grabbing that data unstructured, sticking it into a system, and being able to, save you a lot of time, sort of editing data, putting the right apostrophes in the correct place. So there's what I'm trying to present here is, from this slide and the last one, that it's all over. It's everywhere, but there's different levels to it.
I think one of the things I've started to see is that it's things like, certainly from a business perspective, the whole data analytics piece and forecasting information, etc., would have historically, and without AI, taken a very skilled individual to be able to do that, who potentially knew some really kind of complex, certainly just in terms of using Excel, needs to be kind of an expert in terms of Excel to even kind of get the right amount of data out there. This has kind of really simplified the whole process, and made it much quicker to be reactive to decisions. Without question, that's it's one of the things I've certainly seen off the back of it. Certainly with some of the new business intelligence tools that are out there.
So here's one that links back to my parking fine. I didn't have to do this, but ChatGPT, again, it's out there. A lot of people are using it, and you can use it for so many things. One example is, I could have used it to help me to appeal my fine. So I could have, maybe I've never had a parking fine. I don't even know what to do. So on the left-hand side, you've got me asking it how to approach the situation and remove parking fine and insert any situation you can think of. Maybe you've had a legal letter or something from HMRC. Again, you've got to take these things with I'll jump onto this. There are some caution you've got to have, but it can provide you with some steps to deal with that. And then the right-hand side, it's written me a letter. It's written me a letter, an email that I can send to them. Again, I might want to tweak that, but I didn't have to write it from scratch. So the idea here is like, it's really good. AI isn't just ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is very powerful, and we'll come on to this shortly, and Charlie will talk about it a lot more in the second sort of series of talk, is about how to use these tools to make yourself more efficient, make yourself faster, time saving. That probably saved me, if I had to write that email, 10-15 minutes, and having to check the email and validate it versus writing it from scratch. That's a time saver. But I'll come on to what you shouldn't do with ChatGPT shortly. But there's loads of things you can do with it, and if you haven't used it, the free version out there, it's good to have a play with and just get a feel for, because no matter what they're saying with the regulations, it's too slow. It's not going anywhere. And
we're gonna show a few other examples of ChatGPT towards the end of how you can start to use that potentially today. But I think, as Neil will show with caution, that it's I think everyone thinks the results in there are perfect, which we'll probably show you shortly that they're not.
Yeah, and then, as I say, AI is not just ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is an AI. There's a website called There's an AI for that, with 6,000 AIs, varying on very basic AIs that some could argue aren't even AIs, but all the way to really complicated, really powerful tools, some which you have to pay for, some which are free. And there's so many different tools out there. It can be overwhelming. I've gone through this list before, and there's some really cool things in there, but there's way too many for even for one person to work through. If the top left, one of the guys I work with did that. They used a photo of me with an AI to create me as an alchemist as part of the thing we were doing. That's just to demonstrate. That took him, 3 minutes to do, and 6 to 12 months ago, that would be nearly impossible, or they'd have to be a very skilled Photoshop editor to make something like that. So this is the kind of things that it puts, as Charlie touched upon, it puts in the hands of the average person tools and expertise that they wouldn't have previously had. There is some caution we'll have with that, but it can make things a lot more accessible, and it can make you a lot more capable. There's an app called Tome, just as an example. Tome will create you a slide deck. Me and Charlie haven't used it for this slide deck, but you sign up to the app and you tell it the title of your talk, and it will generate you 5 to 10 slides with prompts, with images in those slides. Now, I've played with it. Again, similar to the parking fine response, some of the slides will be good, some of them won't be, but it's a baseline, it's a starting point. And sometimes when you're doing work, it's just having that initial element to start with. So image generation, slide generation, a lot of the things I've mentioned already, which I won't go into again, but there's a lot of AIs, and if you are interested, that website, I think, well, we had the link, but it's dropped off. I can drop it at the end in chat. There's an AI for that, and you can even, if it's photography you're into, if it's stock trading or whatever, you can have a look on there and see some different AI tools. But caution, I advise, because that list isn't so much curated, it's just a collection of, here's some cool things to experiment with. But there's so many tools out there, and it's only going to get bigger and more interesting. And then over to you, Charlie.
Yeah. Okay. So what's dive in now is perhaps a kind of few more real life examples, because we're kind of talking about, we're starting to see, as Neil said, kind of AI in certainly in the background in terms of things that are impacting our personal life. As I said, about kind of Netflix recommendations and what type of music you like, etc. But ultimately, from a business point of view, certainly what we're trying to do as a business and what we're promoting amongst our clients is actually those repetitive tasks, those things that people are doing kind of day in, day out, and repeating the same processes over and over again. Where are people's time better spent? Is it doing those kind of repetitive tasks, or actually, if we can start to build in automation, and we can start to build AI into those processes, that we're freeing up people's time to do, more complex processes, or it could be spending more time with your clients, or developing your business. So actually, some of those kind of lower end tasks, those repetitive tasks, that actually we can certainly get our employees kind of free up their time so they're focusing on more kind of high value work. We spoke about this kind of briefly earlier as well, but the whole predictive analysis of how AI can help us predict our customers' behaviors, their spend patterns, what they do, things and processes that historically would have taken some serious time in terms of analyzing data sources from multiple different locations, and having somebody with a skill set to be able to read and analyze that information, that we've now got AI tools that can almost do that for us instantly, that they can be reading that information, reading that data, and making decisions, or certainly giving you advice and guidance based on quite complex algorithms that sit behind that. One of the things I found quite scary when you start doing some research into this is in terms of kind of bigger organizations, of how they're using AI to actually see their kind of market penetration in the world. So AI will be analyzing things like social media and website activities and posts, and will be capturing things like data that's within images. So if somebody wants, if a company wants to know, how, the level of their market penetration or their brand awareness, actually the analysis that it's getting from people posting on social media is giving them real-time information and real-time data, off the back of that. It becomes really quite scary when we start thinking about the type of data that people share and post online quite freely, and how that data is being used. I suppose this is really kind of touching on what Neil said earlier, and there's some common AI tools out there. Neil, do you want to touch on this?
Yeah, the only one I really wanted, because we've talked about a few of these, the one I really wanted to talk about was which does teases up for the next one is Copilot, really, just to mention Copilot. So Microsoft have heavily invested in the AI world. They purchased, or they have a large share in OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT. They've also sponsored many other AI elements, and Bing has AI ChatGPT built into it. And what they're looking to do, and they are doing, and I don't know if Charlie's got access yet because he gets early access, is they're going to integrate it into the Microsoft suite. And we've spoken about several tools that are kind of external, but the AI tools are going to be coming into your day-to-day productivity suites and services. Yeah. And within Microsoft originally had Copilot for creating code. So developers were using it to create code and improve their code and help them be better developers, really. But it's now moving away from like the purely technical people, and it's going to start to bleed and come into the lives of us day to day. I mean, already in 365, it will recommend documents to read before meetings, and it will recommend certain. And this is all a flavor of it, and it's just going to get more intense. And for me, as someone who, I do love technology, but I also like my free time. So if it can make my life easier, I will do. I'm going to look to fully see if I can fully embrace these tools. If they can make my life easier, just read this before the meeting. This is this. Here's a summary of the meeting there's the whole privacy security element I need to discuss on the third talk, but if it records everything that you say and it gives a summary and actions for a meeting, I mean, again, we have to discuss the privacy and security of that, but that's pretty powerful. How many meetings do you come out of and there's no actionable points to deal with, and the meeting was a great meeting, but it doesn't happen. So there's a lot of AI tools that are going to be coming into your sort of front and center if you want to embrace them as a company and a business.
I think that's the thing. So with the likes of Copilot, so the latest I've heard, so Copilot, which is going to be effectively some of the functionalities in ChatGPT and these other AI tools. In May, Microsoft kind of announced that was released and going to be rolled out. The latest I've heard is that's going to be November, December this year at the earliest. Until that's actually available for people to buy. It will be an add-on to existing Microsoft 365 licensing, so you'll need to be using kind of 365 business standard or above in terms of that capability, and there will be an additional license fee for it, because that's one of the things that people have thought that it's going to become free. But I think it is going to be a real game changer. So you start talking about those kind of meeting notes, so if you're hosting a Teams meeting, that actually it will automatically produce you a summary of that meeting, and all those actions that you've potentially just spoken out, vocally during the meeting. It will compile that. It will automatically then create you tasks, or calendar items or follow-up items, and actually automate all of those, some of the manual processes that sit behind it. Then you think about things like emails and replying to emails, or analyzing information, or summarizing complex data. A lot of these tools now are going to be built natively into the Microsoft Office suite, which is going to be really quite interesting of how that changes the way that we work moving forward. I think it's going to be a real game changer. But there is going to be some work in terms of setting that up. It's not, there is some configuration that's going to be done and needed as part and parcel of that. But we'll keep you kind of appraised with Microsoft Copilot, because certainly from a business perspective, it's got the potential to be a real game changer and a massive time saver moving forward. I've just kind of tried to summarize this of really thinking about areas of how AI can benefit your business and within different departments. And these are literally just a few. But we think about, from a sales process, that actually how we can start to create, outbound email campaigns. So, historically, I've certainly, in producing content that is, that's articulate, that's well written. Actually, we can now use AI tools that will just do that for us automatically, or just sat there, even if it is just the starter for 10, how many times you've gone to compose a new email, and you almost spend 5 minutes pondering how you're going to put that together. Well, if you've got a tool that's going to give you the bare bones initially that you can then go in and modify, actually that's a real powerful thing. We spoke about some like the data analytics stuff. So actually, who are we going to target? The whole demand forecasting piece. If we've got inbound leads that are coming into our businesses, are they good? Do we want to know where they've come from? Can we find out additional information about them automatically, so that suddenly we're not having to do lots of research about this inbound lead? The information is automatically provided to us. So it could have, already done a lookup at company's house and looked at their last set of accounts and looked at their website and the number of people that they've got. So all of those kind of fact-finding things that you'd normally potentially do on a discovery call for an inbound lead, that actually it's gone and found as much of that information for you as possible and presenting it to you, which could have just been off the back of an initial email inquiry. Suddenly you've got lots of data and information to help you make a decision of whether that's somebody that is a good lead, or you'd rather focus on somebody else. Marketing, I think, right now is a really powerful piece. So in terms of creating content, we're going to show you some of that now shortly. Being able to do market research, doing analysis of multiple, competitor analysis of multiple competitors, doing a review of their and summarizing what's on their websites, their external marketing collateral, and actually be able to give you information really quick, in terms of that. Things like image recognition, SEO. I think this is something that it's going to be quite interesting how search engine optimization changes moving forward. But one of the things that we know from an SEO perspective is that you need pages and content that answer people's questions. And the way that people ask questions on Google changes quite dramatically, but the more pages that you can have that will match an answer with good quality content that will answer somebody's specific search result, you've got a much better chance of being found, off the back of a Google search result. Well, to create that content and the number of pages that you need to do that is, one, expensive, time consuming, and dependent on resource availability, is quite difficult and challenging to do. Well, now you can do things like what's called programmatic SEO, So actually getting AI to automatically create pages on your website to answer these questions. So not necessarily content you'd want to use on your main landing pages, but actually we can produce really high volume content that's going to answer key specific questions. Finance, the whole repetitive tasks, data entry, actually things that, some of these tools have been about for a long time, but not necessarily that accurate, that are now much better. So you go into that scenario of actually you've got a supplier invoice that's just landed into your finance department, and we scan that in, but it's automatically and accurately going to be able to capture all that information, is going to be able to fill out the fields in the various different software that you use and automate that entire data entry process. Any kind of repetitive tasks that again, programmatically and using AI, we can streamline all of those processes. Things like evaluating employee expense reports. Well, I've seen an example of that recently where it'll look at that historically over the last 12 months, 3 years, or whatever it may be, and actually be able to give you, are they any difference in trends in terms of what people are doing? Is that unusual? And just really looking at some of the behavioral traits around that. Customer support, Neil already kind of gave an example of things like chatbots that are now much better than they used to be. So that we're freeing up people's internal time of actually, if we can field a certain amount of questions and answer people's questions quickly and efficiently using AI, there's potentially some benefits in terms of doing that, so that your people are dealing with the queries that can't be answered, that we can't give a quick response to. But things like being able to prioritize processes. So this is, kind of use an example of where we're looking at this moment. It's not something that we've launched yet, and we're literally investigating it. But as a IT service provider, when our customers log a ticket or an issue with us, that we evaluate that ticket. So we read the ticket, we understand the detail of it, we want to understand the priority of that ticket, and understand the criticality of it based on the information that's provided, so that we can signpost that to the best engineer with the right skill set to fix that task, so it's much quicker and much easier. Well, using AI, we can actually get the AI bot to do the analysis of that ticket, understand the criticality and priority. Yes, it might still flag that we need to get some additional information, but we can automatically signpost that to the right engineer with the right skill set, who's going to be able to fix that ticket much quicker. So there's some really nice efficiencies that can potentially be had by using AI on this basis. Recruitment's quite an interesting one, because I can see kind of pros and cons of this, and I've already seen examples of this. But things like analyzing CVs that come through, rather than having to kind of read those through, is the right skill set there based on the criteria that we're asking for, actually being able to shortlist people. So where you've I'm not saying, I think recruitment would be quite interesting off the back of it, but where you've potentially got recruitment agencies that are doing that fielding process for you and sifting out those CVs, well, actually, can we now start to advertise directly ourselves, potentially reduce some cost off the back of it, and actually getting AI to do the analysis of those job boards, because that can be a really time-consuming process. The flip side of that is I've seen CVs that have been produced using AI and ChatGPT. So actually, some of the content that people are writing is, you can go to ChatGPT and say, write me a covering letter for this type of job in this industry, and it will do that for you. And you can give it some basic information, and it will write a really articulate, either CV or covering letter of the information coming through. So you then start to question, actually, are you getting the picture, the true picture of the person that's applying for that role? Off the back of it, like I say, kind of chatbots with things like frequently asked questions, that we can actually get some really good responses off the back of those now, where I would say historically chatbots were really quite basic, primitive, very frustrating to deal with. They certainly do seem to be improving off the back of it. So we've spoken about some of the positives around AI.
Yeah, I know how to come in and basically tell you why not to do everything Charlie just said. Feel bad. Yeah, no, it's risk and balance, right? It's about being aware and knowing what you should or shouldn't do. And the first one there, the first line, blind trust of of the tools. I mentioned it already. There's going to be thousands of tools out there, and there are lots of examples where, and I've got one today, where ChatGPT fails, where it just can't do a thing. It hallucinates. They call it hallucination when it goes off on a tangent and it really doesn't get what you're asking it to do, or it comes back with advice that isn't really great. And that's not just ChatGPT. That could be any of the AI tools, because humans make mistakes, and I think it's AIs, they're still not as good as we are, and they're going to make more mistakes, really. And we've just got to be careful we don't blindly then trust the AI. So I did an experiment with a colleague of mine. We took with permission, we took a really old, relatively old. I do some work at the university. We asked one of the students if they didn't mind if we took one of their pieces of work, and we fed ChatGPT the marking grid and the piece of work, and we asked ChatGPT to mark it. And it was very interesting. The information it gave back, like the feedback, the written feedback, was very good. It nailed it. The score it gave was totally out of whack. So it kind of like, it did one thing really well, but another. So if on Charlie's example of CVs, just to extrapolate that, there's a potential that it might be able to give you some really good verbal feedback on a CV, but maybe not. Maybe if you ask it to score the CV, it might not do so well. The issue though you've got with ChatGPT is around privacy and security. Is what data should you put into these tools? Because none of us read the terms and conditions, and in this AI world, data is king. There's a big reason that Twitter made everything private, and Reddit and lots of these big tech companies are suddenly making everything private, or making it so you can't just scrape all their data, because with AI, data is king. And if you're taking customer data, your employee data, any sensitive data, and you're putting it in these tools, you have no idea whether they're storing it, what they're doing with it, or anything else. You can read their terms, and if their terms state that they don't store it and things, that's up to you to decide that trust. But we've got to be careful without going to the extreme of just throwing every bit of data we've got into these tools, because there can and there probably will be consequences. There was a bug in ChatGPT where this was a while ago now, but it was spitting out information from other users, and if that's information that's sensitive data from your company and organization, that's not great. I'm not to say that's not possible, because what Charlie mentioned about being able to look at tickets, we've been looking at doing something internal, so you can get local chat models and things, and you can control them yourself. There's a whole world of things you can do there. But the point of this slide is just be careful with the blind trust. Be careful with throwing data into these tools. Ethical and bias concerns. If you had a set of profiles that you previously hired, and you fed that to the AI, and then moving forward, if you use that as a template to make decisions on future hiring, there's going to be a bias built into that system then, because what you've previously done will then be replicated in the future. If that's what you want to do, that's okay. But it's being aware that the term that we use in coding is garbage in, garbage out, right? So the quality of the data that you put in will influence the quality of the data that comes out. And this is really apparent when you ask ChatGPT questions, because if you ask it a really basic question, you'll tend to get a really basic answer. If you provide context information and you talk to it more like a human and give it more information, you'll get a better answer. And the follow-ups as well, you can follow up from the first question, and it can refine. And I'll show you the fail that I had with it recently. Cybersecurity threats. Good people are going to use these tools, as are bad people. Now, I've seen many phishing is still a very common attack, and it's because it works, because people are successful with it. And what it's allowing is, whilst it's allowing us to be better, it's allowing criminal entities to be better. So if you were a non-native English speaker and you were in you were in a cybercrime, I won't call it a company, probably a criminal organization, and your phishing emails weren't doing so well because you didn't quite get the nuances of certain English languages and things. Well, ChatGPT has just given you a great opportunity to refine your phishing emails and make them better and target them. And ChatGPT does try to stop you doing these things, but rather than saying, write me a phishing email so I can get Charlie's bank details, you could say something like, and I've seen this done, I need to email my bank to request them to do this. Please, can you write me an email to allow me to ask for that? And so you can word it in a different way. But ultimately, not understanding how the AI works or the implications of it, we need a sense of just healthy skepticism. That the list that I showed you of the 6,000 tools, that's great, but there's no trust pilot at the moment for the AI tools, and they're all springing up all over the place, and you don't know who's behind them. So just being careful with the data, which leads us on to the next slide, hopefully, which is that's the one after that. But I'll come on to this. So I was at a wedding on Saturday, and the bride and groom had a crossword puzzle, and one of the questions was a pizza topping, right? A pizza topping that is 9 letters, and we knew that the 5th letter was a P, because the answer we knew with the bride, we were 100% sure it was a P, and we were like, we could not get the answer, right? Like, this is really difficult. And so I said, I'm going to ask ChatGPT. And as you see there, I said, give me a pizza topping, which is 9 letters, and the 5th letter is a P. And it says, it could be pineapple. Now, I don't know about you, but something's not right about that. I don't think the 5th letter of pineapple is a P, but it was pretty sure. I said, no, that's the 6th letter. It goes, sorry, I apologize. It's not a P. A pizza topping could be pepperoni. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is not the 5th letter is definitely 6th letter. Is not a P. And I referenced, I want that's the 6th letter. I want the 5th letter, and it comes back and says the answer is chipotle, which is a 9-letter word. And chipotle or chipotle, however you pronounce it, I don't believe meets the criteria. It was actually jalapenos. I didn't get that. Maybe because of the S on the end. I don't know, because jalapenos. But a really simple example of where it just got it wrong. I've been told that there's a reason for this. It can't count on numbers or something, but the point is there are blind spots on these AI tools, and we've got to be aware of them. That's a silly example, but you could expand that into if you're using it for a serious piece of work, you need to be validating. The other example I'll mention is I was talking to the accountant about the difference between having an LLP, limited legal partnership, I think it is, versus an LTD. And I asked ChatGPT that question, and it gave me an answer. It looked good, but I went to my accountant and says, "Is this right?" And they were like, "Yeah, it's pretty good." So having that expert sort of validation is always a good thing to have. I think the next slide, if you can, and this is about the business approach. So I mentioned about this. All Charlie's mentioned as well. Great AI tools. Do this, do this, do that. Also, I'm like, don't use AI tools because they're bad and they can do this. And ultimately, it's a business approach to AI. And this is something you should probably think about and implement. Because if you don't take a stance, your employees will make their own stance. They'll decide to do what they want to do, and it'll be to make their lives easier. And I wouldn't blame them. So you could embrace and encourage them, be creative, use this. Control and put compliance in there. I'd always recommend that, so people know what the rules are. My wife works for the Department of Education, and they released guidance on how to use ChatGPT. And basically, you can use ChatGPT for this, this, and this. You can't use ChatGPT for this, this, and this. And some very clear guidance, so everybody knows where they stand. Or if you say, I don't like this, I don't trust it, you could avoid and deny them. I couldn't think of an A for avoid and the other one, keep the pattern. But personally, I wouldn't recommend that because it goes against what Charlie's going to talk about using it to enhance your business. But really, you do have to think about what your approach is going to be. use it a little bit with some guardrails for people. People like structure, no matter what they say. They like to know what they should and they shouldn't do, and that can be, it's something to think about really as well. But yes, next slide. I think this one back to you, Charlie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. Really, it's about using these tools appropriately and with caution. So, but I certainly wouldn't be putting any data into any kind of public AI tools or anything that you've got no control over. But in terms of doing research or creating content based on information that's out there, actually, it can be really quite good for that. But really, just kind of summarising, some of the things that Neil said here is, we've still got to fact check any content that's created by AI tools. So, we saw on the, the pilot, the pizza topping example of, it doesn't always get everything right. So it might be a good starter for 10, but we still need to go through and check the information, the data that's there. One of the things that AI has been quite commonly used for now is like creating software code, or things like Excel macros, or HTML code. So in terms of creating tools for websites and plugins and all sorts of different things that you can do. If there's any kind of techies on the call at all, things like being able to write PowerShell and some quite complex commands. It's quite good at doing that, but it's often, you still need some knowledge and experience to go and check the code or make the changes to it that needs to happen for it to work. So it's not perfect. So we certainly can't rely on it that it's going to do everything. It goes back to carefully reviewing kind of automated data analytics. So yes, whilst we've said it's pretty good at doing that, we've still got to have that side of caution with it. And I think really the whole point of this slide here is just summarizing that we've just got to use it with caution. Everything, whilst I am saying there's lots of areas that we can use this in business, and how it will bring some real efficiencies, it is still with that air of caution. It's not that kind of blind trust of, well, it's AI, so it's got to be perfect and it works. Ultimately, still treat it with caution. So just to finish up, what we thought we'd do is just give you, if for anybody who's not used or seen ChatGPT before, is just giving you some kind of basic examples of what ChatGPT looks like, the type of things that you can ask it, and just go through a couple of really basic, simple examples. There's some really quite complex stuff that you can do in here. So if you've never used ChatGPT before, if you look at the URL at the top, if you go to openai.com, but if you go to chat.openai.com, you can go and register an account on here, and it will kind of give you access to this portal. There is a kind of free version, which is the one that we're using here, but there are kind of paid subscriptions as well. But if we use this and kind of keep this in the context of the webinar today, I perhaps might want to be able to produce some content of how AI can benefit businesses. So I can ask ChatGPT to give me that content. So I can say, write 400 words demonstrating the business, and quite literally I can press enter and ChatGPT will go away and go and create a load of content that will do 400 words that will be telling us how AI will benefit business. And if you start to read through some of this, it's actually generally quite useful information. But just kind of let that finish through. But that's produced me some content there that does that quite quickly and easily. But I can now I can then ask it to do other things with this as well. So perhaps this is some content that I want to use and potentially put on the website or send out on an email or tweet. But if I wanted to send a tweet about this type of content, I can say to ChatGPT, write a tweet about this. So using the same context, I've not had to go and ask it the same question again. I can just, it's referring to the previous part of this conversation. I can then say, write an email about this. And it'll put together an email based on the content that's been written previously. So just in terms of content generation, you can see how kind of quick and easy it is to do this. That I can start to, ask it lots of information, go and do some research for me. There's some, if I want to find out, one of the, you can see perhaps a search here that I've done previously is write something to show the benefits of, and this is a particular Microsoft Office 365 thing, but show me the benefits of using Azure Active Directory, and it will go and write some content, and I can use that as a foundation of an email to send to a client, rather than necessarily having to go and spend that time doing that research. I've got a tool that will give me that information really quickly and easily. But what you can also do here is get it to produce things like some content or code, and let's just say we're using Excel, and perhaps for a complex Excel spreadsheet or workbook that I've got put together, I might want to have a macro that produces a table of contents. So I can ask ChatGPT to say, write a macro to produce a table of contents it will go away and tell us what we need to do and give us the instructions of how to do it. It's going and writing this macro that I can use to import into Excel, and then it shows us exactly how to do that towards the end. So a couple of very quick, easy examples of how we can start to use ChatGPT. And in the next webinar, we're going to dive into this into a little more detail of showing a few more examples of how this can work and what it can do. But hopefully you can just start to see that some of the benefit, some of the power of using AI, and as Neil said earlier on, ChatGPT is one AI tool out of thousands that are out there that will do kind of different tasks and different things. Hopefully you can start to see some of the benefits of using this, where it can potentially drive efficiency, where it starts just to make our life a little bit easier. Where historically, we perhaps either got a starter for 10 in terms of that email or that content that we're creating, or actually if we want to create code or we want to do something a little bit more complex, that we've got the capability of doing that. So that's it today for me. Neil, I don't know if you've got anything else. I don't know if we've got any questions.
No, nothing else from me.
So Marcus, have we had any questions that have come through?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions in the chat.
Okay.
So the question on sort of the small pilot, more anecdotally, what I've seen in smaller or larger companies, what they've tended to do is they've chosen either a group of people or an area, and it tends to be like marketing or something like that, one of the more creative areas, and they've sort of given them the sort of range to go, okay, go and start using this tool, and you'd be surprised what marketing teams or people are probably already using it anyway, and getting them to use it in some specific cases rather than rolling it out to the entire business. But the issue is different areas are going to use it in different ways. Marketing are going to use it in one way. If you had a development team, a different way, a finance team, or even individuals, there's different use cases. So it's either, I think, speaking to specific teams and giving them some rein, or what I mentioned earlier, trying to come in and say, right, look, these are the guidelines for how we can use this. This is what you should use it. So normally ChatGPT as a starter for 10. This is what you should use it for. This is what you shouldn't use it for, and then get the feedback on that. So if Charlie's got anything else to add.
No, I think I think you've covered that off quite nicely. I can see Gillian's got a question here. So presumably, if AI can check CVs and job applications against something like a job description and person spec, if you could do the same thing like procurement bids versus responses, have you seen anything like this? So yes, I think ultimately yes, there's tools out there that can do that, and there'll be some testing with it. Even within ChatGPT, you can link data sources in there and ask it to do things like that by analyzing information. But yeah, happy to kind of talk about that. I think one of the things that we're going to see, certainly with the likes of Copilot coming out, this type of capability is going to start to become native within Microsoft Office. But there's certainly the capability of doing that. Yeah, we'll be sending the slides out. So yeah, no problem at all with that. We can send those out. If there's any other questions, feel free to chat out. Other than that, really I'd just like to thank everyone for their time this morning. Hopefully you found that useful. Like I said, just jumping back, the next webinar, if I just go back to the dates. So the next one that we're running is going to be on Tuesday, the 1st of August at 10 o'clock. And that's where we're going to be showing you kind of 5 different AI tools that you can use in your company. So we'll jump a little bit more into ChatGPT and show you a few more examples around that. But we're also going to show you some tools like Tome that Neil mentioned in the webinar, and some others as well. So once again, thank you very much, and hopefully see you all on Tuesday, the 1st of August.